else. Okay,
There we go.
okay. All yours, Richard.
Thumbs up. Yeah, let's hit it. Okay, so am I going to share screen, or how are we gonna work this? I mean, I've got a
If,
PDF here that it might make it easier.
if you're comfortable doing that, I think
So
you'll do a better job of it than I will. Um,
okay, so basically sharing is not turned on. There we go.
okay,
A request has been sent. Yeah,
okay.
multiple presenters can share. Yes. Okay, what am I doing? That one. Is that the one? We got it.
It, it's there.
Yeah, awesome. Going up and down. There we are. Okay, the Red Wheelbarrow reading. So I've got a few poems tonight, but obviously time permitting, we'll see what we can get through. The first one is from um, my recent book with Deep South. I've got poetry tonight that I've done with Deep South, the from Otherwise You Well, my recent book, and I've also got poetry from my first book, 876, which was self-published, and then one or two new pieces that I thought might be of interest. I've written a few things recently, and hopefully some of them are okay. But Jenny, let's get off to this one. This was the opening poem of Otherwise You Well. And I kind of like the rhythm and the way this tends to get going. So here we go. Tech Talk. Seems to me we're out of luck, out of time, and out of date. Clearly, I heard calling from the rooftops, through the satellite dishes, through the Marshall amps, unanimous calls for a reset. Back to the Stone Age, back to the copper wire age, back to the telephonic ringtones of the soul. The best things in life are deep fried gemstones, the ones in smart gadgets, life affirming affirmations, not even Facebook, the next Facebook, the Facebook of robot lovers and Cartesian soldiers, the dynamite magnets, the overlords, the geniuses behind the sellout. I've been meaning to talk to you about this, but I ran out of airtime. It's a figure of speech in a new kind of language. I got tickets to the sellout. I picked them up for a steal. Everything you will ever want now has to be downloaded from Amazon rainforest, from the Google jungle, using your genetic makeup applied without the help of laboratory animals who are dead, as God is dead, as democracy is dead. They all died in the sellout. It was a global red carpet auction event attended not only by the rich and the famous, but by every living being with a coded stub hooked into their heart at birth, planted there by extraterrestrial monkeys, like in the movies. I was there. I took pictures for the papers. With a graphite pen, stole your hearts and sold all the stubs for peanuts. What else could I do? They are coming, and we are out of time, out of luck, and out of date. I looked up on the internet, saw all the stars had turned to dust around a giant masquerading wheel of flame. Every metal petal, every plastic vase in which our dreams were cast are dashed, shattered into a handful of magnetic flares that lead the ever hopeful on. Global village idiots carving out their plans in biomass, in scree, along indecipherable journeys between points that cannot join. You cannot join the sellout. All the tickets are dead. So yeah, that was the opening poem. It was written a couple of years ago, 2017, and yeah, as I say, I kind of like enjoy the way it just kind of like goes. You know, it's good when a poem has its own rhythm. So yeah, going to go through to a poem called Paper Boat, which was one of the first poems I ever published in New Coin, care of Robert Burle, editor, in 1997. So I was a youngster, and um, a simple and I think beautiful poem. Well, if one can say so of one's own work, but yeah, anyway, here we go. Paper Boat. People lived in caves. People looked out the mouth and the eyes. People thought the moon was a hole in the sky, but the sun was actually a bath plug holding the water on the outside. Here comes the rain. People constantly thinking in raincoats. If he had clever hands, he would fold a paper boat rather. People floated on the August wind like an assortment of winter leaves, hung in the gutter waiting for spring. People blew along the surface. Life was golden. Life was fallen red and yellow. People lived in cars. The road shone as if covered with tiny bits of glass. The road was covered with tiny bits of glass. Behind the glass, there were tiny bits of road going other places. He thought he saw people out the window of a bus, but they were just people outside the window of a bus. If he had clever hands, he would still fold a paper boat, rather, he would put tar all on the outside. People came and went as if nothing had happened. People came and went. People come and go, nothing happens. That seems to be the best of it. Um, uh, Robert, you'll notice this is the first draft in which I spelled Sean wrong. I remember we spoke about that long, long time ago. I said, this is the unedited version. I don't know why I included it. I think I've included one or two unedited pieces here, but I just picked that up. Anyway, there's a typo there, by the way, everyone. Sean is with an E. Sorry. It's just how it works sometimes. Uh, this is a cool poem. This is a poem about I don't know really what a poem is about. What is a poem about? Anyway, it's from Otherwise You Well. And I think what I'm doing is I'm kind of like addressing a whole lot of people by addressing a single person, and I'm using that to springboard something pretty important, trying to get a message across. And the message is, well, I'm going to give the story away, but I think it's about climate change and how we're basically effing this up. So the poem is called "I Called You Up." Um, I called you up in the pouring rain from Kyoto. I'm not a seasoned traveler. Perhaps like Caulfield, I was feeling lonesome, standing in the phone booth with water to my knees, thinking these brogues are ruined. Tipping coins into the slot with wet, shaking hands, dropping quarters, which then sink. You never answer anyway. I've called you up so many times from so many different places, but you ignore me. I should let it go. It's been too long. If she doesn't want to talk about it, don't talk about it. I think we should talk about it. Outside the crowded streets, but the noodle bars are empty. An endless smear of neon runs like mascara. God, the people in this place. I turn to block them out, but the glass is 360. I could wind in circles like this until the cord like an umbilical wraps around my neck, and before you answer, I would drown prematurely in these floodwaters. Rings and disconnects. Operator, the lines are down, and I'm a traitor to a beautiful cause. James, don't wait that long. I called you up. It was the middle of summer from Paris. There were people dying in the streets. You had your new iPhone on. I can see you even now walking from room to room, an open gown, the sheer silk curtains blowing gently in the breeze, while outside in the street old people fall onto their ice cream. I stand there, watching children playing in the dried up fountain, marbles that melt like glue, tires that grip in the wet, shot of baby strapped in back seat, Radiohead, fitter, happier, more productive. How many times can I do this? You've kept me wanting for so many years, from so many abandoned spaces, fertile made sterile, and still this desire. I can still see your face as we made our goodbyes, and I won't give up. I will keep trying to get back through to you, to your voicemail, just to hear the sound of your voice. As you hang up, as the forests turn to tinder, as the birds fall like lightning from the sky, as the oceans themselves begin to burn. Yeah, okay. The next poem is a one from 876, my collection of juvenilia, my masterpiece of juvenilia, aren't they all? Anywho, yeah, here we go. So this is an interesting piece, and I always preface it with like, so what we're doing as poets sometimes is we're just writing about things that have happened or maybe things that will happen. You kind of like try to tap into an unconscious, if not your own, then our collected unconscious. And this poem was written the night before of the 9/11 terrorist attacks on New York City, with the planes and things. So I sat down the night before and I wrote a series of poems late in the evening, and I was really, really fluid and really, really happy with the way things are going. And the first poem kind of like just came through in a rush, and it's called Used Vehicles. So traffic takes me back to the days when there were less vehicles and people stayed indoors more, relied on natural timing to put in an appearance when it was absolutely necessary, and then get done by a mammoth on a routine hunting expedition. There's also a typo over there, sorry. Your 15 minutes of fame cut short by a sudden juddering feeling, straight through and out. Nobody stopped to watch. Those there dug a hole, offered your meat to strange gods, ate what little was left, grew the wings of giant birds in slight-lit caves, and opened small businesses. After having found the ocean brave with dead men's dreams and a land unconquered beyond the reach of any king, we grew soft and lazy, fat and slowly, towering, achievement on top of achievement, paving cities of gold out of circles of power, of pain and punishment, wrapping men in leopard skin, tagging them cold, humorless, marking them fit for war, placing them in the line of fire, then measuring it from point of impact to grave. Those of them as were not wounded, we try to save. All our failures reflect a willingness to learn to keep on mass producing these weapons of self-destruction. Somewhere along the line, even the Manson family could give us a Jesus Christ. Lost halfway between bliss and oblivion in a used Ford, the options are endless down the narrow road, desert skirts the dirt lane. Reality is a conquering nightmare, the devil's accident without recall. I've been dreaming in cactus, walking for miles without a soul. So yeah, it's I've tried to keep the reading a bit mixed, as I say, with stuff from my first book and stuff from Otherwise You Well, my second book, and this one is one that I particularly enjoyed. It's from Otherwise You Well, called When Last Did I Hear From You? Animal mind is tripping blind across the bush elastic, and the planetary sun, swept entirely upside down, lingers on the ripples of the tide, flashes of color. When last did I hear from you, carried so swiftly away? Last year's rains are memory thin. Tomorrow's mirror is a curved rim. We build our bridges across rivers that no longer run. Our endings and our beginnings are no longer paired. We wander effortless through the 7 dimensions. Fields of wheat, fields of mechanized precision, the heartless rows of crows. I've been burning both my footprints for hundreds of years, and still these roads do not close, still the border guards. Tethered fires, how many lengths of wood, how many buckets of blood, how fast do we disappear in dual rearview mirrors? I've lost so much more than I can understand. I refuse to accept the child of your regret. I leave it out with the morning papers for the scavengers to collect. I detest any real form of punishment or neglect. I've grossed the tallies and set out the rallies somewhere on the internet. Bullish, bearish, Amish, lavish. The nuclear towers of Babel swing wide. Frontal lobe, swift data carriers. The animal mind is tripping glass bottle breakers, plastic chairs to the grand parade. Rainbow chicken lottery tickets with sharp, retractable claws. Highlights will be shown at midnight Eastern Central Time. I just got off the phone with Donald. I just got off Melania. Just got off a plane from East Texas. The robber barons and the bones, the endless clatter of bones. Sterling, diamond, glitterazzi. All the new paupers on display. Fire and ice and graveyard dice. Fast cars finish last. Animal mind is tripping pure cerebral love. The last bazaar in the Everglades. The oasis filters our dreams. The border guards are closed. Border patrols have opened on NASDAQ. Everyone is singing the song of the fear of their people. Floating around on bubbles, coasting to a stop in the desert, turning the key, turning the screws, waterboard championship riders of waves of future tech. Animal mind is tripping great big breaker balls to the wall. Why are the waters rising on our planet? Why do we refuse to drink the medicine? I love you, phone charger. I love you, ice cream truck. I love you, cold chain silicon implant. I love you, Miley Circus. After the final broadcast from the bunkers of the leaders of our enthusiasts, we chased dragons by their tails. We cornered the globetrotters in their pens. And in the morning papers, as the batteries howled, the screens of the world fired up one by one like birdsong. So, yeah, obviously there's a persistent theme through some of my work. I do tend to comment on what we are going through as people are, and I think it's important that we engage singularly and collectively on issues that and these things just come to the fore when I sit down and write. If I'm faced with a page and I'm looking to write about a feeling rather than a message, then these things come through fairly, yeah. So the next poem is called "Not Ready for You Yet," and this is a new poem. I wrote it about a year ago. Writing has been a bit touchy. It's been a bit stop and start, focused on my business more than I am on my writing at the moment. I'll tell you about a retreat I went on recently. There's a poem or two that I wrote during that retreat, and we'll get to that. But for the moment, here's "Not Ready for You Yet." Talk about poems about feelings rather than and relying on imagery itself rather than just coming through with something concrete. I took a walk through a battlefield. They were using weapons I had never even heard of. Heads presented on stalks following the sun, lowered behind a mustard cloud, all shouting, "They are not ready for you yet." I put away my bag of things. I carried on. I took a train out the city and I jumped into the night. I spoke with ghosts and heralds both. We laughed and it felt wrong, all wrong. Every word a dog licking. I could tell you a story of how it all turns out. How the giants have no brains, yet very thick skulls. How the little men move mountains with their fists stuck in hawes, who cry out, "Hosanna, Hosanna," and still he does not come. I could present it at auction, gather crows on whatever passes for billboards these days, and let it all hang out. I would marry that dancer, and the flashbulbs are the wrong tack, the wrong sentence, and the wrong poem. I've known hammers with more tact than this. Heavy things, nails all a blister, splinters, and the cunts who make them do the things that they want, with prompts and jailbreak, with bribes and mistakes, and all along the roadside, the scarred out husks of cars, travelling endlessly between lost markets and bazaars, crying with their oily boxes wet in sand and strep. They are not ready for you yet. Wait a while in this back seat, all that. God, I have punctured my lungs with sterile pieces of your last great sale, all the microscopic integers, the boardroom pledges, the fat men, the metal gyroscopes, all swinging in tandem at random, clang, clang. God, I dropped a new range, swallowed half the golf again, and ran. I ran from every sitting room. I ran for president of the nascent industrial bourgeois contraption. I considered contraception the very instant I was born. But still, they are not ready for me yet. They are not, they will not. They are far from letting go, drawing pictures in the stars, each one pointed down. And cool. Okay, so yeah, the next poem was a poem I wrote recently on a retreat at a Deep South retreat at Robert's Farm. And wow, just to yeah, a bit of a punt. If you're looking for a place to go to kind of like let things go and just sit down and write, if you are otherwise encumbered in this world, I would recommend getting in touch with Robert and Deep South Retreat. It's a massive farm on his house on his property, with 15 or 16 rooms and I don't know how many sections. And I was alone in the house for 3 or 4 days, and I wrote a swath of poetry, and some of it was hopefully very good, and others need an edit. But for a first time in a long time, I just sat down and I just wrote for hours. So this is a short poem from that time. It's called "I Thought I Saw a Lion." I thought I saw a lion on the edge of the escarpment. It had escaped from the private game lodge due to a lack of public oversight, through the electro wiring like an earth leakage. Its mane was bright gold and slightly burnt along the edges, like a bad dye job or a felt fire waiting to ignite. And its eyes were holes in holes in holes, into which you would fall if you were not careful, and a mouth of shock and awe like a limited application tactical nuclear warhead in the open field battleground for my soul. When the lion spoke, it was with a tone and voice out of which arose three majestic cathedrals of injustice, each with their own spineless articulation. The rampart of each vertical castle, crawling with night adders, armored without honor, yet slick of sword. And with the lion then up I climbed, another altogether ordinary-looking set of stairs. Look, this could have been a dream, the lion spoke beside me, and aren't you glad that I am here in your flesh and in your blood? I think the trick is to keep climbing and never look down. And that brings me to the last poem of my reading. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciated this. I don't often get a chance to hear myself talk to other people. I often talk to myself all the time. But this has been great, and this is an interesting poem, also written recently. And with this one, I try to get a real cool staccato rhythm going. It's very short and a lot of full stops where there shouldn't be. I tend to do that a lot. I used to do that a lot. Now I'm editing them out. Thanks, Robert. I am editing when I need to. And this one is just, yeah, this one just came out, and let's see how it goes. It's called In Hull No Hero. Never made it back, send word, release the paper tiger, let it burn. In Hull, no hero in heaven, no hero on earth, no hero. Tonight, no hero, no lover, no savior, no light. Let it burn a path that is lost. Let it curse in pulled tongues, let it love through burst hearts. Let it bleed in Hull, no hero in Hull, no garden in Hull, no hope in Hull, no hero, no warrior, no savior in Hull, no throne in Hull. There is ringing, cages are swinging, the angels are singing in Hull tonight. Never made it back, send word to the light. Let it weep, let it bleed, let it fight, release the paper tiger, let it die. So yeah, there we go. Some old poems and some new poems, and hopefully some more new poems soon. But yeah, thank you, everyone. I enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Fortification.
That was a tour de force. Thank you very much. Can we give a hand to Richard, please? So,
Thanks, guys. I hope I didn't read too fast, which is why I like to share it, so you can read it fast with me. I want to get from beginning to the end very quickly, and then, yeah.
it worked very well.
Not always.
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay.
You got
Great.
it quickly.
You see how I can get out of this, screen.
Richard,
I can see everybody.
Okay. Are you up for some questions?
Yeah, for sure.
Comments or
Always.
engagement with your work?
Richard, you go to share screen and you'll see a red thing that says unshare or something.
Aha. Yes. That's the one. Great. I can see everyone again. Hi. Cool.
You can still see it.
Still here. I can't do it, Wendy.
Must I do it? Okay.
You have to do it.
I have to do it. Why do I have to do everything in this world?
Sorry, Richard.
Being an adult, it's all right.
I know, it's terrible. Okay, so I'm opening it and closing it. I suck at Zoom, everyone. Everybody learned Zoom during COVID, and I avoided it like the plague. Sorry, I'm full of terrible jokes. Screen sharing. There we go. Not leave meeting. No, that'd be bad, right? Can we just ignore it, or is it really, really?
I don't. I'm seeing something else, and
I'm pretty sure the meeting host should also be able to stop sharing.
Okay.
We can also decide for ourselves if we don't want to see it. We can opt out. Like I'm out of it now, but I've actually got to run. But thanks, Richard. That was great. Really enjoyed that.
Thanks, Anton. Yeah, no, it's great to catch up with you and see you again. And yeah. Next time I'm in Grahamstown, we must meet up Makanda,
For sure. Yeah, we'll meet up in both of those places.
Fantastic.
Cheers, man.
Have a great one. Cheers. Cool. Bye.
Okay. Well, is there anyone who'd like to ask a question? I have one or two things I could ask.
I want to say anything. I want to say something.
Say it.
Am I audible?
Yes, Wendy. Hi.
Oh, I am.
Hi, Wendy.
Hello. How are you?
No, I'm great. I'm great. Thank you.
Good. And even nice to see you too. Nice to see everyone. Yeah. So I really enjoyed that. And
thank you.
I'd very much like to hear them again because they're quite dense, but they move so beautifully, and they've got they they go in so many directions, but they still move along in one other direction, which is, I don't know which direction, but it's a direction.
Neither do I.
They've got some kind of direction or a momentum, but it's not very describable. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. I like to try and, I try and let them go where they want, I think that's the important thing is when you start writing and you think you're onto something is just to let it happen. As when I was last at the farm on the retreat and I wrote those really long poems, which I thought were pretty good.
Good.
They did kind of like go everywhere, but hopefully towards an ending, and that's pretty much what you want to do. You want to grab a feeling and fill that feeling with imagery that supports it. And hopefully people can come along and they can then interpret that according to, if you leave it open enough, I think, without being, that's maybe where the other directions come in. If you keep the work open while guiding it, so that's a nice observation. I hope that I continue to do that, write pieces that work on different levels.
Yeah. They've got a fierce momentum, that's for sure.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm left hanging on to them. I trail behind. And I'm sometimes glad that I get to the end in one piece, Final full stop, and I'm like, yeah, done. Okay, another one, save. Okay, on to the next galloping horse, Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's
okay. Is anyone else has a question?
I'd like to ask one, if you don't mind, if I don't have my video on,
Absolutely.
if I may.
Oh, cool. Hi, Corinne.
Hi, Richard. I'm sorry, I'm down with some kind of virus and my glands are swollen. I look like a pumpkin,
Oh,
so
sorry to
I
hear
don't
that.
want.
Yeah.
Well, it's all right. I think I'll survive, but I don't know if you would survive seeing me looking like a pumpkin. So it's more for everyone else than for myself. I was
No,
just
for sure.
interested in the fact that so some of the poems were written quite a long time ago, and at one point you said you were about to read quite a beautiful poem, and then you sort of caught yourself and you said, "Oh, if I may say so myself." And I was just wondering if there is with time and space and distance, if there is that ability to look at poems that you wrote a long time ago and it's almost like they're not your own anymore, that you can look at them more objectively, or whether each time you read them, is it that you're seeing something in them that you wish you'd changed, or just what the experience is of reading something you've written a long time ago.
I think it comes from there are certain poems that when you write them, they tend to feel right, and when they come out and you know that you've actually written a good poem, and as I say, you hit that save button, and those poems that stay with you, because others don't. I think there is obviously the creative bias where you write something and you're like, that is the most amazing thing I've ever written, and 3-4 months later you read it again and there's a hiccup and it doesn't carry through, and like Mindy says, there's no momentum in that piece, and you start realizing that, okay, maybe that isn't as great as I thought, and maybe that wasn't the poem that I felt it was. And with certain poems that I have written, that feeling has persisted. Like the paper boat poem, which I know my wife really likes as well. And that was a poem that just came out all in one shot. And the used vehicles poem as well. Some poems, when I write them, they are intended for performance. But I mean, the inherent voice and the rhythm sometimes is in such a way that there are poems where I've written 10, 15 years ago that I can, if necessary, not that I've read them a lot, but I can stand up and I can recite them almost verbatim, word for word, because I think that the internal voice of the poem is that solid and that structured. And that was one of them, the paper boat poem. I think every time I read it, I don't see a lot that I could change, and I think that's, for me, that's the hallmark of a good poem, or a solid poem, or a beautiful poem, is something that kind of like that speaks for itself. So there are other poems I'd say, okay, that's a great 14-page poem, but I mean, it needs a big chunk out the middle, or the ending isn't great, and you want to captivate people with what you've written, and what you're reciting. And those poems stand out after the years, and every time you read them, they're like, I don't want to change it. That's perfect. And it speaks for itself. It speaks through me, and I speak through it. So yeah, there are a few poems like that, and I enjoy writing them or being written by them. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very interesting. Thanks very much.
No, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Good to hear your voice here. And if I may, I have a couple of comments and maybe one question. Richard, I think your poems are particularly striking each time I've heard them, in the way that they evoke something surreal, nightmarish, the sort of morally bankrupt state of the world, the technologically saturated world we live in, the fact that we are plugged in and we can't escape from it, environmental catastrophe, all of these things. Poems are just really striking. And maybe it's because, as you say, they're multi-layered. They're not didactic. There's a dark humor in the poems. And I love the unease in your poems. I get a strong feeling of unease and discomfort from your poems, but in a good way.
It's probably me.
So, yeah. So I mean, I think the one question I had, you already answered. It sounds like you write, and what comes out comes out, and you just follow that. And I'm intrigued by the animal references in your poems. You've got animal minders tripping, and you've got the paper tiger, and you've the lion, and etc. So I wondered if you had anything to say in response to that.
I haven't given that too much thought. I have written one or two, and look, I love animals. I'm an animal lover, and I'm a cat whisperer, and all those things. And dogs are great, and it could be that I'm just, obviously, if I'm looking to engage with the world around me, and I'm looking to do so on a number of different levels, and doing it in a way in which obviously we're engaging, as in like the human species in our biome and what it is we're doing to it. And obviously there are other participants who are not always represented, and those are maybe the animals around us, whether they are the domesticated animals or the wild animals. And so when I'm reaching for images, and I'm looking to put words together, and I'm saying, okay, look, it's us versus the world here. We've got an environment that we're meant to be curators of, and we're not necessarily doing a very good job of it. Maybe that imagery comes through. Maybe it's okay. Maybe these are the NPC, non-playable characters in the poems. Maybe that's like, they come through. So you lend them a voice, and hopefully, it's a strong one. Yeah. So strong images, good poems, don't they? Yeah.
I was just intrigued, yeah, and I enjoy it that you incorporate them. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
If there are any further questions from anyone, now would be a good time to ask them. Robert, hi.
Hey, Robert.
Hi. Yeah. So, Richard, I mean, there are poets who sort of write their poems, as it were, construct their poems and deliberately write them, and there are poets who they just they write the poems write the poet, or the poems write themselves. You're obviously one of those, you know. It's like that radio transmitter or type of poet, you know. And it's interesting, you know. It's just like it's more like you've got to get yourself in the right mood, and then the poem just starts writing itself. And I think that's where it's not difficult to integrate all these multiple levels and multiple voices, and you know, getting high technology and ancient kind of rhythms and ancient kind of archetypes and angels and kind of obscenity and everything. It's all like thrown together, and it's not like you deliberately try and do it. It just seems to like be part of the writing itself. So just keep doing it, you know, because there's plenty, obviously plenty of poems that want to write themselves.
Yeah. I'm going to try.
Get out of the way and don't edit too much.
Sorry?
Just get out of the way and don't edit too much, you know.
No, I'll edit later, or I'll ask you to. But yeah, to add to that, I think it's always about finding the right space in which obviously these things come through. Like when I was younger, it was easier. You know, it was a case you didn't really have that many commitments. You could basically stay up until 3 a.m, and you could let the poem write itself through you. And if you wake up the next morning at 10 or 11, you know, it's fine. And I struggled recently because it's about let's say, to use an analogy of, let's say, sports, when you get into that kind of rhythm and you just keep doing the same thing, and you hit that kind of the cliche of the zone. So to give an example, is recently when I was at the farm for that retreat, I mean, and I allowed myself to let go and say, okay, this is 5 days that I've got, you know, 5 days to do this, and then I've got a year ahead of me in which I'm not going to have this again. And then I sat down and I wrote that 40-page stretch. Whether or not it needs editing, the fact that I could do that is about being in the environment in which it is conducive, in which you can open up your laptop, have a white screen in front of you and say, right, okay, let's go. And if you catch that, you know, and it's great, it feels good, because that's what you're looking for, is obviously that the poem that you've written or has written you is making you feel that you're capable of doing something better than, you know, yourself, you know. So I'm going to keep trying to do it and keep trying to find the spaces in which I can do it, because those spaces are getting harder and harder to find, you know. You know, it's like admin, coffee, poetry, admin, you know. Too much admin, too little poetry, you know. It's a problem, but I'm working on it. Yeah. But I'm coming down again for another retreat, Robert. Yeah, 10 days this time, 80 pages.
No, okay. Fine, do
it. Sooner rather than later, yeah. I'll make it a tour on my yearly itinerary. I'll book a week, and Eva's keen as well. It's a lovely space, you know. I think.
Yeah, I should just tell everybody here that, you know, when Richard came, he in the sort of natural, what do you like, that nature reserve type of setup. But he just like closed all the curtains and like was in permanent darkness and just wrote. So I think a lot of that environment, and also, you know, a couple of cases of whiskey which he got through, and then
one bottle of vodka.
Well, you created your environment yourself, which is fine.
You could have been
the can of butter.
Rich, you best tell them how we had to mission for that half case of whiskey on a Sunday afternoon in Macondo. That's the real story.
Oh yeah, no, look, we had to.
That you were still in the urban space then. Now you anyway got out of that. Okay, well,
we won't mention the can of butter.
No, we won't.
No, we won't.
We won't.
No wonder the windows were closed. I was freaking out. No, I'm joking. It was like I'm like that. My wife also says I'm like a creature of shadow. You know, like I'm constantly, you know, the curtains are drawn and I'm tripping over things. I mean, if I'd open up the curtains, I wouldn't trip over things. And I'd go, oh, why am I tripping over things? Because I'm living in darkness. No, it's like when I write, it's like, okay, that is the environment. I mean, you know, I had this beautiful house in which to do it, and it was a case of, okay, let's you know, let's keep the cicadas out, first of all, because they were getting pretty loud. And let's sit down and let's get stuck into this thing in front of me, which is, the Word document, and let me see what I can do with it. And after 4 or 5 hours, it was fantastic to know that this thing was like walking along on its own legs. So I think it was great. But yeah, what a nice space, what a nice environment. So I'm going to do it again, definitely.
Okay, thanks for the advert.
Yeah, and checks in the mail.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Richard. Thank you for the question,
Thank you,
Robert and Karen. And yeah, sounds like an amazing place. Yeah, and however you got there.
Highly recommended.
So this is time to sort of take a break and stop the recording. Yeah, such a treat, Richard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.